Okay, just look up in any city and you know you're going to see them. Cranes. They're these absolute giants building our world, hoisting tons of steel and glass hundreds of feet into the sky. But have you ever stopped to think about how they do that safely right in the middle of our busy lives? Well, the answer is pretty fascinating. It's this hidden world of rules, risks, and most importantly, teamwork.
See, there's this whole invisible system running in the background. For every single move a crane makes, there's a super strict set of protocols, a rule book, really, that governs every little thing to make sure disaster doesn't strike. It's this quiet, constant process that keeps these massive titans in check.
And believe me, the need for these rules is absolutely critical, because the stakes, they couldn't be any higher. I mean, yeah, they are essential for progress, but they also represent an enormous potential for danger. And understanding that risk, that's always the first step to preventing it.
So, what kind of dangers are we really talking about? Well, according to OSHA, that's the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, the risks pretty much boil down to four major categories. And these aren't just minor bumps and scrapes. We're talking about life or death situations on every single construction site.
So let's start with the absolute biggest one. Of all the things that can go wrong, and there are a lot, right? Falling loads, mechanical failure, the whole thing tipping over. What do you think is the #1 killer when it comes to crane accidents? The answer? It's probably not what you think. That's right, electrocution. It's not falling objects, it's not collapses. More people die from cranes making contact with overhead power lines than from any other single cause. It's the silent, invisible threat that crews have to be on guard against every single second.
And you know what? Preventing this #1 killer often comes down to a single number, 10 feet. And this isn't a suggestion, it's not a nice to have. It is the absolute minimum safe distance OSHA requires cranes to stay away from power lines carrying up to 50,000 volts. Just 10 feet. That tiny distance can be the difference between a normal day at work and a tragic accident.
And this isn't just theory. Let me tell you about a real case. A mobile crane was working near a 13,000-volt line. The boom just brushed against it for a second. In that instant, the operator was killed and a worker on the ground was severely injured. It's a horrible reminder of what a momentary lapse in awareness can do.
So, electrocution is the leader of the pack, but the other three big dangers are just as devastating. You've got struck by hazards, from falling loads or parts of the equipment. Then there's caught between, where a worker gets pinned by the crane's huge swinging counterweight. And finally, the one we all picture, catastrophic crane collapse, from putting too much weight on it or not setting it up on stable ground.
So how do we actually fight these things? We fight them with knowledge. Every one of those hard, painful lessons has been turned into a specific OSHA regulation. And this isn't just government red tape. It's a safety blueprint that's literally been written from past tragedies to save future lives. At the very heart of this blueprint is one key rule, 1926.1430. Now, what that basically says is that every single person working with or even just near a crane has to be trained. They have to know how to spot the hazards and how to do their own jobs safely. It really makes the idea of safety an active, learned skill, not just a poster on a wall. And that training, it creates a team. You see, safe crane operation isn't a one-person show, no way. It's more like a synchronized dance, an ecosystem where every single role is absolutely critical for the safety and success of the whole project. Now, the core of this team really comes down to three key roles. First, you've got the signal person. They're the operator's eyes and ears on the ground. Then there's the rigger, who's responsible for making sure the load is hooked up perfectly. And of course, the operator, the person in the cab who has to control this massive machine and follow the plan to the letter. The signal person's job is really cool, actually. They use this universal language of hand signals. It's like a special sign language just for the job site to communicate these complex commands like raise the boom or swing left. Whenever the operator can't see the load directly, the signal person is their lifeline to what's happening on the ground. And then you have the rigger. These folks are trained to spot the absolute tiniest flaws in the equipment that could be deadly. I'm talking about a few broken wires in a cable, a bit of corrosion, a small kink. They inspect every single piece of rigging before every single lift, because one failed strap is all it takes for a catastrophe. And right at the center of it all, you have the certified operator. And their job is huge. They have to be certified for that specific crane. They have to do daily inspections, understand every single control, constantly scan for those power lines, and this is the big one. They must know and never, ever go beyond the limits spelled out in the crane's load charts. But what about everybody else on the site? Well, safety doesn't just stop with that core team. The rules are really clear that everyone on a job site has a part to play in keeping the area around that crane safe.
So, what does that mean for you if you're on a site? Well, it boils down to a few simple universal rules. 1, never ever walk under a suspended load. 2, always respect that 10-foot power line rule. 3, stay out of the swing radius that's marked by barricades. 4, don't try to give signals unless you are the qualified signal person. And finally, and this is so important, everyone has the power to call for a stop if they see anything that looks unsafe. So the next time you look up and see one of those giants stretched across the skyline, what are you going to see? Will it just be a piece of machinery? Or will you see that invisible team, the operator, the rigger, the signal person, all speaking that silent language of safety, building our world one careful, precise lift at a time?